Hi friends, welcome to codewithsugi YouTube channel. Today in this video we are going to discuss about methods in Java. So already we have discussed about data types, okay? And then we have discussed about identifiers and we have discussed about scope of the variables, okay? So all those things are mainly talking about the variable section only. But whenever we discussed about class, right, I have mentioned that normally the class will have two functional blocks. One is called variables and another one is called as methods. So till this point we have covered mostly about the variables. Okay, then I think this is the right time to discuss about methods. Now let's see how many types of methods we have in Java. So basically we have two different types. One is instance method, another one is static method. Then we will see what is meant by instance method. So say for example you have a class called class sample, okay, and whenever you have a class obviously you will have a main method, okay. So if you want to access anything which is in the class, okay, then you have to create object, right? How we will create object? Sample, say for example obj equal to new sample, right? So this is how we used to create object. We will call this obj with different names. We can call this is an object, or you can call this is an instance. So instance in the sense this object is one instance of this class, okay, that is the exact meaning of this obj. So if you are trying to access any method using instance, then that method used to called as instance method. Accessing the method using instance. So that's the reason we used to call this kind of methods are instance method. Now we will see one example for this instance method, okay. So before we get into this instance method example, first we have to see what is the syntax of method. That first we have to see, right? So the very first one will be access modifier. Then you have to mention about the return type of that method. Then you have to say the method name, okay. Then so inside the open and close bracket we will have list of parameters, or we can say arguments, right? Then you should have a open curly braces and close curly braces to define about the method scope. Normally this method scope will begin from here and it will end it here. So this is the syntax for instance method. So access modifier in the sense we know how many access modifiers we have, right? So private, public, protected and default. So whenever you are trying to create a method, then you have to specify any one of this, okay. Then return type. So basically the return type will be two types. One is void, okay. If your method is not returning anything, that is you are not returning any value, then you can say void, okay. If you are trying to return something, then you have to specify the data type of that value. Say for example after the completion of this method, if you are trying to return a integer value, if you are trying to return a 10, then you have to specify the return type as integer. So that means whatever type of value you are trying to return, based on the value we have to specify that value's data type as a return type. After the computation, if your method is trying to return a string, then you have to specify the method return type as string. If it is returning a character, then you have to say it's a character. If it is returning any object, then you have to say object, or you have to say what is the type of that object, you have to specify that. Okay, so the method name is user defined value. Whatever name you want, you can very well specify that name, but the only condition is the method name should be unique. So Java will not allow you to create a duplicate methods. So the parameters we all know, right? So obviously the parameters means it's a variable. Say for example, if you want to compute values with integer, then you will pass integer values here, then that values will be taken inside, because it's a kind of a local variable we have discussed, right? So the scope will be from here to here, so directly you can access the variables inside of this method, and you can compute or you can perform whatever you want. So this is the simple syntax for instance method. Now I'm going to write one sample method for our understanding purpose. Okay, but whenever we get into Eclipse, whenever we see the demo, right, at the time I will explain everything in the Eclipse. But for understanding purpose, now say for example I'm going to create a method like this. So access modifier, then we have to specify return type, then we have to specify method name, then open close bracket. Okay, so this is the instance method syntax. So with help of this, if we try to create a method, then the method will be like this. So I will take access modifier as public and return type as integer. Okay, and then method name is addition. I will pass two arguments here to perform addition. Okay, fine. So here you can say integer c equal to 0, then c equal to a plus b, and then return. See, here we are adding two integer value. Okay, so obviously whatever the result you got, right, that will be in a type of integer, right? Based on the return value, you have to specify this return type. Here I am saying the return type as integer. Say for example, now if I am trying to return like this, return c divided by 3. Okay, then it will return a float value, right? So here you are trying to give a float value, but the method is expecting a integer value. Then at this point of time, you will get a conflict and the compiler will raise an error that this return type is not compatible with the whatever return type is specified in the method. So now I think you got some idea like what is mean by return type. And if you are specifying a return type in a method, then this return keyword needs to be used to return that value. So we have discussed void is also a one type of return type. Okay, say for example, we will take the same example, public void addition int a comma int b. Okay, so here I'm going to say like sys out a plus b. So here I'm not returning anything. Okay, I'm giving two values and then I'm directly doing the computation and then I'm trying to print that value here itself. Okay, so here I'm not returning anything. So if you are not returning anything from the method, then you have to say void as the return type. Here you can use modifiers private, protected, okay, based on your need. We have discussed about how to create an instance method, what is the syntax we need to use. Then there is another one term going forward which we will be using is method signature. Okay, this is the term which we used to refer or which we used to say whenever we will see the OOPS concepts. Okay, so for that we have to understand like what is meant by method signature. We know, right, how to create a method. Say for example, public, I'm saying void addition. So here it's not mandatory or it's not compulsory that the method should always have a parameter. Without parameter also you can very well have your methods. Okay, so we will see all those things whenever we get into the Eclipse. Okay, so now we're going to discuss about what is meant by method signature. Okay, we all know this is the access modifier, this is return type. So then the method signature will start from here and it will goes to this point. Okay, this is the one which we used to say the method signature. So based on this signature only, compiler will understand whether this method is available in the same class. So all those things compiler will take decision based on this method signature only. So whenever we say method signature, then immediately you have to understand that they are specifying the method name and as well as the argument list. So this is called as method signature. Now we will see how to access the methods, instance methods. At very beginning of this video, I have told that instance method means the methods will be accessed with help of the objects or the instance of that class, right? So say for example, now I'm going to take a class called class sample. Okay, let's we say we have a class like this. Obviously we will have a main method, right? Public static void main. Let's we consider we are having a method called public void display. Then simply I'm going to say system.out.println, okay, hello world. So we all know if we are creating a method like this, then this method is called as instance method. And as we discussed earlier, the instance methods will be accessed using the objects. Okay, so if you want to access this display method, then you have to create an object for this class, right? Sample obj equal to new sample. Okay, then if you say obj dot display, then if you run this class you will get the output like hello world. So as I told, right, this is the instance method, so that's the reason we are accessing this method using this instance obj. So that's the reason this method is called as instance method. Now I think you got some idea about what is meant by instance method, how to create an instance method, how to access the instance method. So what is meant by access modifier, how to use the return type, what is meant by method name, or what is meant by method signature. So we have covered everything in this video, right? We will see all those things in Eclipse, but for understanding purpose we have discussed everything here. Okay, in the next video we're going to discuss about static method. So in this video we're going to discuss about static method. We all know we have two different types of methods in Java. One is instance method, another one is static method. So in the previous video we have discussed about instance method, and if you are new to our channel, please have a look on the previous video. The link is provided in the description. Now we're going to discuss about what is meant by static method. So static means, okay, it's a class level method. It's not based on the instance, okay, it's based on the class. So that's the reason we used to call the static method without objects. Okay, so that means you can call the static methods with the class name. Okay, fine. So already we used to see whenever you try to create a simple Java class, that Java class will require main method to implement your logic, right? If you closely watch that main method, the main method will have a static keyword in that method definition. So if a method having a keyword static, then that method used to called as static method. So we all know if a method is having a keyword called static, then that method will be called as static method, right? Okay, now we will see about the syntax of the static methods. The method will have access modifiers, okay, and then the method will have a keyword static, okay, then the method will have the return type, then method signature, that means method name, and then open bracket and close bracket, and we will have a open close curly braces. Okay, here we will say parameters, that is with or without parameter. Also you can create a static methods. Okay, so from the beginning we used to see the main method, right? So public static void main, it will have a string of arguments. So this is the one best example for static methods. Okay, so due to this static nature, okay, the compiler is able to access this main method without any object creation. Okay, so now I think you may correlate all those things with the static method. Okay, so that is the reason we always used to have a main method in each and every class. So due to having this static keyword, the compiler will easily get access of your main content of the class, that is the logic whatever you have covered in that class will comes under this main method only. So the compiler easily will identify this main method using this main, then it will execute your program from this point to this point. Okay, so now you can easily correlate all those things with this main method, right? If not, no issues, we will going to have a different video for this public static void main alone. Okay, in that we will discuss everything clearly. So we have discussed about how to create a static method. Okay, fine. Now we have to see, right, how to access the static method in real time. Okay, fine. So for example, you have a class called sample. Okay, fine. So for example, we having a public static void main, then string of args. Okay, then let's we say public static void display sys out. If I say hello world. Okay, this main method is having a static and this method is also having a static. Okay, so it's compatible, right? So within the static you can easily call the static method. Fine. And how we have to call this method? So normally if it is not a static method, we used to create object for the sample class, then we will use that object and then we will call that method. But if it is the static method, then you can very well say sample dot display. Okay, or directly you can say like display. So both will give you the same result. Okay, so technically we will call that method using the class name. So this is how we used to call the static method in class. Now I hope you have some good idea about what is mean by static method, how to create a static method, what is the syntax which we need to use to create a static method, and how to access the static method. All those things we have discussed clearly in this video, right? So before we conclude this video, I want to discuss one more thing, that is normally we used to call this instance method or member or non-static method or member. So example, private integer num equal to 5. So these kind of variables we used to say non-static variables. So then we all know, right, the static methods or member will be called as a static method or a member. So example, private static integer num1 equal to 7. Okay, we have a static keyword in it, so that's the reason we used to call this is the static. Now we need to see the accessibility, right? How to access this non-static into a static, the same way static into a non-static method. Okay, fine. So for that, I'm going to take a table like this. Here we will say non-static member into a static method. Okay, how we will access using the object. Fine. Then if it is static member or method, then inside of static method you can directly access using class name. Okay, fine. Here I'm going to say non-static method. So again, if it is non-static member or method, then obviously inside of non-static you have to create object and you have to access it. If it is a static member or a method, then you can access it using class name. So I think now we have covered everything. So the one thing you want to keep in mind is if it is non-static, then you will access using object. If it is static, then you will use class name to access it. Why? Because the static is a class level variable. Okay, so that's the reason we are accessing with the help of the class name. We saw everything in a theory way, so this is the right time to discuss all those things with some examples, right? So I'm going to create a project called method project. Okay, so we have created a project, methods project. Then I'm going to create a package com.learning.methods. So here I'm going to create a class called instance method. Okay, so obviously we need a main method, so I'm going to select it. So now we have class called instance method, right? So in the previous video, I have specified that how to create a method, right? So what is the syntax of that method? Fine. The syntax of the method will be like this, right? So obviously first we have to specify access modifiers. Okay, any one of the access modifiers. Then the next one we have to say return type of the method. Okay, then we have to say method name. Then obviously it will get the open and close bracket. Okay, then based on your requirement, the method may have parameters. So then we will have open and close curly braces. So inside of this open and curly braces, we used to write the logics. So before we get into this method declaration, first we will discuss about why these methods are required. Okay, so before we discuss that, I will create a method so that we can easily understand it. So we have four modifiers that I'm going to take public as the modifier now. I will say void because I'm not going to return anything in this method. So that's the reason I'm taking void. Then method name, I can say instance method without parameters. Okay, so without parameter means I'm not going to pass any parameter. So now this is our requirement. We will discuss about why this method is needed in Java. So if you are not aware of what we have discussed till date, so you don't need to worry. We always used to add all the links in the description. So please go ahead and have a look at the previous videos. So whatever we are writing inside of method, we used to say logics. Okay, or precisely if you want to say, we can say it's a business logics. Okay, fine. So let's consider this instance method without parameter is having a logic like it's going to print hello world. Fine. So now just I'm going to copy this. Okay, so let's consider we don't have any method in this class. Okay, so if now I want to create or if I want to do some logics inside of this class, whether it is possible to write the logics without method or not, let's see. So just I have pasted that logic over here. Now if you go here, it's giving some errors, right? So it's clearly saying that I am not able to understand what you are telling. Okay, so that's the reason whatever logic you are having, that needs to be implemented inside of the method. Okay, so that's the reason we are having methods in Java. Fine, now we understood, right? Say for example, if I cut this, already we have this logic inside of this method. Now it's not giving or it's not complaining anything. Okay, the compiler is okay with the implementation whatever we have. Now I think you have some idea about why we are having a methods in Java. Fine, now I told, right? So this is the instance method. If we are saying it's an instance method, obviously we need an instance or object to call this method, right? So in the previous video we already discussed about what is the use of main method, right? So without main method you cannot execute Java program. So if you want to create or if you want to access whatever we have in this class, then obviously we need an instance or object, right? So now let's we create one object for this class. We all know how to create an object. If you are not aware, then please have a look on the previous videos because we have discussed that in a clear way. Fine, now we have a object or instance for this class instance method. Okay, so now with this object you can access whatever you have inside of this class, right? Okay, because the class scope is start from here and the class scope is ending here. Okay, so with this object you can easily access whatever you have inside of this class. Fine, so now I'm going to say object dot instance method without parameters. If we say this, that means we accessed this method with help of the instance of this class. Okay, so now let's we go and run this. Let's we see what's happening. See, we got the output as hello world. Now we know how to create instance method and how to access that method. So the next type of method, instance method with parameters, and we are not returning anything. We can create like public void instance method with parameters. Now I'm going to write some logic inside of this. Now to understand it in a clear way, I'm going to say this is instance method without parameters. Okay, now I'm going to say like instance method with parameters. Okay, so if it is a with parameter, then at least we should have one parameter, right? Let's say string name. Fine. So in the previous video, we already discussed about scope of the variable, what is meant by local variable, what is meant by global variable, all those things. If you are not aware, please have a look on the previous video. Now I am going to say plus name. Now I am going to print like this. Now let's see how to access this method. Already we have object for this class or instance for this class, object, then instance method with parameters. Fine. Whenever if you hit the enter after selecting that method, by default based on this variable it's putting its default value. Okay, so already in the previous video we have discussed about default values of the variables or data types, right? If you want to know more about the default values, we have a separate video. Please have a look on that. The string will have the default value as null. Okay, that's the reason the Eclipse is giving you null as a default value whenever you're calling this method. Fine, but I don't want null here. I want to pass some value like hello world. So this is how you have to call the instance method with parameters. Okay, whatever parameter you have specified it here, that value needs to be passed in this method. Okay, whenever you calling that method, you have to give the values for the parameters. Then this value will be assigned to this name. Then this name, whatever operation you are doing here, that will get applied, and then based on that you will get the result. Now if I go to run as and if I run this program, I'm getting, see, this is instance method without parameters, instance method with parameters, name hello world. Okay, so I will say like this. We have discussed about two types of methods without return type. Then if you use return type, then obviously you will get two methods. One is with parameter and another one is without parameter, right? So now I'm going to copy this method and then I'm going to paste it here. So if you paste the same method, then it's giving you an error like it's a duplicate method. Okay, so that means you cannot use the same method signature. Already in the previous video we have discussed about what is method signature, right? So method signature, we used to say method name and the argument list. Okay, this part we used to say method signature. So if the method signature is same, then the compiler will understand that we have already same method signature in this class. So it will not allow, or the compiler will not allow you to have the same method name. Okay, fine. So for that we need to do some changes, right? Instance method without parameters with return type. So now see, it's not complaining anything. Now it's fine. What we have mentioned, it's a without parameters but with return type. So we have to specify some return type, right? So we all know whatever we have inside the println is a string. So now I'm trying to return that string value. Okay, so I have specified string over here. Okay, so once you change the return type, the compiler is complaining you like, hey, you have changed the return type, so you need to specify return statement. Okay, so whenever you are trying to return anything from the method, then that needs to be specified in the return statement. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to just cut this and I'm going to say return, then this bracket should not be here. Now I'm going to copy this. Fine, I have pasted it. Okay, and now the compiler is okay with the declaration and definition. Fine, so now it's not complaining anything. Now let's see how to call or how to access this method. Okay, I'm going to say object dot instance method without parameter with return type, right? Fine, so it's done, right? I'm going to run this program and we will see the output. Okay, so now we got only two outputs. One is from this method and another one is from this method. And we are not getting the output of this, right? Why? Because you just return the value. Okay, here you are not at all printing anything. You just return the value to this method. After the computation, the result is returned to this method, but we are not at all printing that here, right? So that's the reason you are not getting output here. So how to print this? Then here you have to make a sysout and then just put this entire method calling inside of the println. Okay, and then if you run now, see, we are getting the output as expected. So whenever you are trying to return this value, then if you want to see that value whatever returned, then you have to print it. Okay, fine. Or you can very well save that value in another string. Okay, say for example string str equal to, we will say object dot return type. Okay, now whatever value you got out of this will be saved into this str. Then if you print this, you will get the same output here. I'm going to say I'm printing via str. Okay, then you will say str here. So now if you run this program, you can see the output like I am printing via str. This is instance method without parameters with return type. Now I think you got an idea about what is meant by return type and how to handle that in the method. So this return type value, whatever you are specifying in this method, should be compatible with the return value whatever you are returning from the method. Okay, that means, say for example, now you have specified it as string and here you are returning string only. So now that's compatible, no issues at all. Let's we consider this is integer, but you are trying to return a string value. Then suddenly the compiler will understand that there is an incompatibility between the return value, whatever the data type we have specified in the method is incompatible. So you have to make the changes to make that compatible. It's saying like mismatch cannot convert from string to integer. Now it's fine. So the next type of method will be, we have to make it as with parameters with return type. Say for example, already we saw an example with string. Now I am going to say integer. Now this is instance method with parameters with return type. Okay, and then value is plus a. So now if you run this program, here whatever value you are passing, that will be concatenate with the string. Finally we will get a string only. So that's the reason it's not giving any error. Okay, so here let's we go and try to print this with the sysout. Okay, then object dot instance method with parameters with return type. Okay, so we already discussed, right? Here this method is having a parameter as integer and the default value of integer is 0. That's the reason by default we got 0 here. Okay, so I'm going to say 10. if you run this program, so we got the output as 10. So I think now you have some good idea about what is mean by method, how to create a method, why we need a method in Java, okay, what is the syntax of that method, all those things we have discussed. So now we're going to discuss about what is mean by static method. So for that I'm going to create a class called static methods. Okay, I'm going to take this main method and finish it. So now we got a class for static methods. So first we will see the syntax for the static method. Syntax will be, first as usual we will specify the access modifiers, and then we will specify the keyword static, okay, and then we have to tell about the return type, okay, and then as usual we have to tell about the method name, then open close bracket and open close curly braces. So this is the syntax for static method. Now I'm going to create a static method with following the syntax. So I will say public, then the next we have to say the keyword static, then we have to specify void because I'm not returning anything here. Then we will say static method without parameters. So obviously in 4 ways we can define the static methods. Okay, we will see all those things. Okay, before that, if you are new to our channel and if you are not aware of what we have discussed till date, so you don't need to worry, we always used to add all the links in the description, so please go ahead and have a look on the previous videos. So as usual, for understanding purpose, just I'm going to have a sysout and I'm going to say like this is static method without parameters, and here we are not returning anything. Okay, fine. So now the question will be how we have to access this static method. Already this main method is a static method. So to access the static method, you don't need to create object. Okay, that means you can access static methods with class name itself. Okay, because the static methods are class level methods. That means whenever this class gets loaded into the class loader, at the time itself these methods will get initialized. So that's the reason you don't need to create object for this class. Instead of that, you can directly use this class name and you can access that method. If you say static methods dot, then see you are getting an option of the static methods whatever you have in that class. I'm going to say this. In the Eclipse, you could see the difference between the static and non-static methods. Whenever you calling it, it will be put in the italic style. Okay, now I think you can able to see this, right? So now if I go and run this, let's see what is the output we are getting. So for the static method, it's proven that we don't need object to call this static methods. That's fine. So there may be a question like, so whenever you have a static method, whether we have to use the class name or we can directly use this static method. For that question, if you try to type like this, obviously you will not get any error. So you can access this without the class name also, but whenever you try to access this kind of static methods, if you specify it with the class name, then whenever you are reading the code it will be very easy, but technically it will allow you to without the class name also. So here I will create one instance method also, then we will see the remaining methods. Public void instance method. Okay, I will say without parameter, right? I will say sysout, this is instance method. Now if you go to the main method and if you say static methods dot, so obviously you are not getting that instance method as an option to select. Okay, so it's proven that the instance method needs to be accessed using the instances only. So how we can access that instance? Static methods dot, now if you say instance method you will get the option. So I think now you can relate the instance method and static method with these examples. Okay, that's the reason I have created an instance method here. So the next type of static method will be, just I will copy this, and we all know the next one will be with parameters, right? And I'm going to say string name. So this is with parameters, and I will say like plus name. So if you go here and if you try to run this, sorry, if you try to call this static methods dot static method with parameters, then we have to pass the value for that, right? So hello world. Now if you run this, so you got the expected output, right? This is static method with parameter hello world. So the next type of method is with return types. Okay, so I'm going to just copy this method and I will paste it here. Okay, then I will say double. Okay, because we already saw the return type with string and integer, so now I'm going to say it's a double. Then so without parameters but with return type, right? Fine. So now obviously the compiler will tell you that we have to return a double value because this method is returning double value. So I'm just going to remove this and I'm going to say return 34.0. okay, because this 34.0 is a double value, so now it's not complaining anything. Fine. Let's we go and call this method and we will see. Now I'm going to run this. See, we are not getting output because the returned value is not printed, right? So I'm going to say this out. So now if you run this, you will get an output like 34.0. Fine. So for understanding purpose, the returned value. So now we got the output as expected. So the last type with this is with return type and with parameter. Okay. So I'm going to say with parameters and with return type. Okay. So instead of double, I'm going to say float. So here we will say float a. Then just return the a value. Whatever value you are passing, just we are returning that value. Okay. So if you go here and if you say this out, the returned float value is, so here we're going to say static methods dot this one, right? Fine. So the value I'm going to say like 54.2 f, right? Because the float we need to specify with f. So we have discussed all those things in the data type section. So if you want to understand more about these things, please go and have a look on the previous videos and the links are in the description. Now if you go and run this program, see, we got the output as expected. So this how we can create a static methods in a class. Now we have clearly discussed about instance methods and static methods. So we saw some examples over here and I think now you got some good idea about what is mean by instance method and what is mean by static method. So one more thing which I want to discuss here is this table. Okay, we have discussed this table when we discussed about static in a theory way. So we're going to see some example for this table. Okay, so say for example how to access a static in a static method, how to access a non-static in a static method, all those things. Fine. So here I'm going to make this out, then I will have kind of separator. Currently we are in a static method and which is a main method. I'm going to say static into a static. So I'm going to create one static variable also here. So that will be private static integer number equal to 10. So here already we are in a static method which is main method. So in this main method, let's we see how to access a static variable. First we will see static variable inside static method. So I'm going to say this out static variable access inside static method plus static methods dot number. So if it is a static method, we already discussed, right? Say for example, I'm gonna take this. Okay. So I'm going to say it here. Static method inside static method. Fine. Now I'm going to run this program and let's we see the output. So static variable access inside static method, we are getting 10 and here we are accessing this number using class name. Okay. So it's proven that inside of static method you can directly access the static variable and methods without instance. The same way we have to see in a non-static method also, right? So I'm going to create one more instance method here, or we can say public void non-static method. So currently we are inside the non-static method. So first we will see about access static variable inside non-static. Okay, so I will say this out. Just I will copy this and I will paste it here. Okay, access inside non-static method. So you can very well access the static method into a non-static method using class name. Okay, the same way let's we go and try accessing the method also. I will say like this, there is static method inside non-static method. So now if we want to access this non-static method, obviously we need an object, right? So I will say non-static method and I'm going to run this. Why I have created object here? Because this is a non-static method. Because non-static methods we will access using the instance only. But inside of non-static method we can access the static member or a method using class name. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to run this. See, we got the output as expected. Fine. So the same way, now I'm going to create one more variable which is a non-static variable. So for example, integer non-static variable equal to 20. So now we have one non-static variable. Now let's we go to the main method and let's we see whether we can able to access it or not. So again, I will put one separator here. Fine. I'm going to say this out. Then if I say non-static variable, we are getting an error, right? So if you mouse over on that error, we used to see like cannot make a static reference to the non-static field, non-static variable. So it's clearly telling that you cannot access the non-static variable inside of a static method without object. Okay, so if you say here new static methods dot, then if you say non-static variable, I'm going to say like non-static variable access inside static method. Okay, and then obviously we need to use the object to access the non-static variable. Okay, if I go and run this, now we are getting the output. So the same way inside of a static method, if you want to access a non-static method, then you have to create object. Okay, so we have discussed everything about static and non-static and how to access static inside of non-static and how to access the non-static inside of static. So we can conclude like if you want to access static inside of static, then you can directly access with the class name. The same way if you want to access static inside of non-static method, then there also you can use the class name and you can access the static methods. Okay, wherever you have a static method or a member, you can use class name to access the member and the method. Okay, fine. If it is a static method, and inside of static method if you want to access a non-static method or a member, then obviously you need to create an object to access non-static method or a member. So in this video we're going to discuss about why we need return type in a method. Okay, for that I'm going to create a class called method return type, and obviously we need main method, so I'm just selecting it. Fine. Now we got the class, right? Fine. So before we get into this why we need a return type, first I'm going to take a method with void return type. That is, I'm not going to return anything to that method, and let's we see how we going to solve this problem. Say for example, we're going to take a problem like add two numbers and then multiply it with 5 if the sum is greater than 100. We're going to consider this requirement to explain about the return type. So initially I'm going to take a method with void return type. Okay, that means I'm not going to return anything in that method. So I'm going to say public static void sum. So obviously we need two numbers, right? So I'm going to take two variables here, that is integer a and then integer b, and then I'm going to say integer sum equal to 0. Okay, then sum equal to a plus b. So now we got the sum. Okay, so as per our requirement, if the sum is greater than 100, then we need to multiply the sum with 5. So how to achieve that? We need to go with the if statement to check the sum value, right? So I'm going to check if the sum is greater than 100, then I'm going to say sum equal to sum into 5. So now we got the output, right? So After that, I'm going to print this sum multiplied with 5 comma value is plus sum. So now I'm going to call this method. So we know how to call the static method, right? We have to use the class name, and then we have to call the sum method, and then we have to pass two values, right? So 20 comma 9. If you add 20 plus 9, then we will get 29. Then it should not multiply that value with 100. Okay, let's we see. Going to run this. So we are not getting any output. So that means the program is working as expected. So say for example, now I am going to run the same program with the input 20 comma 100. Now if you go and run this program, you are getting the output as 600. Okay, that means 20 plus 100 120, 120 into 5 equal to 600, right? Fine. So now we are getting the output as expected. This is the operation which is not related to sum, okay, but we are having that inside of the sum method. So to handle these kind of things, we need to go for the return type methods. If you have a return type method, then you can return the sum to that method, then you can perform the operation whatever you want. Okay, and one more thing is, in the readability wise, okay, if you read this program, we have mentioned it as sum, but when you get into this method, you came to know that we are performing some other action apart from the sum, right? So it's contradict with the whatever name you are having. So to avoid all those things, we need a return type to solve this problem. Okay, now I'm going to create another one method with the return type, and we will see how to solve this problem. Just I'm going to comment this, and I'm going to create a method with a return type, and I'm going to name it as sum. Okay, integer a comma integer b. So here what we need to do, we need to return this sum directly. Okay, what we are doing, we are taking two values and we are adding it, and just we are returning that to the method. Okay, now whenever you call this method, right, I'm going to say sysout. So this how only we have to print the value to see what is the value which we are returning in this method. Okay, fine. So now I'm going to run this program. We are getting the output as 120. So now we got the output for the sum, right? So now I'm going to take this value into a variable called sum. Okay, then I'm going to say method return type dot sum of 100 comma 40. Okay, in the sum, now you will get the value whatever is returned from the sum method. Okay, fine. Now here you can write the logic like, if sum is greater than 100, okay, then you can very well say sum equal to sum into 5. Okay, and here you can print whatever you want. Okay, the sum is plus sum. Okay, now I'm going to run this program, and let's see what is the output we are getting. So we are getting the output as 700. So now whatever the name you are having for the method sum is not contradict with anything, right? Because in the previous method we performed the sum, then we have multiplied the value if the sum is greater than 100. But we are doing the same here with the help of this return type method, right? We can easily take that sum value and we have performed whatever action we want. Okay, so this is the main use of having the return type in a method. Okay, so now we will get into some real-time classes, and let's we see how they are using the return type. Okay, so for that I'm going to this JRE system library, because inside of JRE system library we will have the Java base, right? So all the base classes will be available here. So just click on this Java base, then you will get java.lang. Okay, I'm going to take any one class here, and we will see to access this return type methods. Okay, now let's we consider this integer class. Okay, so in this integer class, if you do control O, okay, then you can able to see the methods whatever we have in this class. Okay, whatever is specified here, if it is having a yes, then this is a static method. And now you can see the methods without s, right? So these are all the instance methods, and you have a c, right? So this is the constructor. Okay, but we haven't talked anything about constructor till now, so we will see later on. But time being, let's reconsider. They marked it as C, then that means it's a constructor. So here in this integer, we are having a static method sum. Okay, now I'm going to click on this. Okay, see, the sum method, whatever we had in our program, right, the same method is available here. I'm going to consider this class to explain about this sum functionality. Okay, here see what they are doing. Whatever we did, the same they are performing here. They are taking a sum method, and the method is taking two arguments, then they are returning the sum. Okay, whatever sum you are getting out of this, you can perform your own actions. So that's the reason we are using the return type. Okay, now I think you have some good idea about why we are using return type. Okay, so how to access this? So now I'm going to create another one class. Okay, because I don't want to confuse with this class, so I'm going to create another one class. I'm going to say like class method return type real, and then I'm going to take a main method here. Fine, now in this main method I'm going to say integer dot sum. Okay, then the sum is expecting two values. Okay, so I'm going to say 30 comma 20, and let's we print this. I'm going to say run as. If I run this, I'm getting the output as 50. Okay, so the same way how we performed here, so we took that value into a sum variable, and then we performed if condition. Then in that if condition is matched, then we will multiply that value with 5. So this is how we can perform the operation here also. So now I think you have some good idea about what is the real use of return type. Okay, going forward we're going to discuss the topic, and then we will going to relate that topic with the real-time Java classes. So in the previous videos we have discussed about how to create a static method and how to create a static member, how to access the static members and methods. All those things we have discussed clearly, but today we're going to see some real-time examples for static. Okay, how the static is used in the Java base class. All those things we're going to discuss in this video. We all know the base classes, right? So we can view in the JRE system library. So if you click on this JRE system library, you will get an option java.base. Okay, if you get into this java.base, you can see the java.lang. Okay, I'm going to show you only one class which is having more static members and methods. For that, so if you come down a little bit, there is a class called math. If you click on it, okay, then this math class mainly made for to perform the math operations in an easy way. So basically this math class is having so many support to perform the math operations. Okay, so for example finding a square root, so this kind of operations you can do with the math class. Okay, before we get into this class, I want to show you what are all the methods we have in this class. Okay, for that we have a shortcut, that is if you do Control O, you will get this span. Okay, so once you got this span, right, so it will allow you to search. Say for example if I'm saying sum, okay, if there is any method called sum, then it will show. So I'm going to say like max. There are four methods which will help to identify max value. So this is how you can do search here. So in the previous video also we have discussed if the method or if this signature is having yes, then that method is a static method. Okay, so wherever you are seeing s, that method will be a static method. Okay, I'm just going to scroll it to see whether this math class is having only static methods or it's having a non-static method also. Okay, so as I said, this math class having only static methods. Why they made this math class with static method is, say for example in real time, if you want to perform any math operations, if you want to calculate power of a value, or if you want to identify square root of a value, or you have a two numbers, if you want to identify which one is maximum, so all those things will be available in this class. Okay, so the reason being to have as a static is, if we have all the methods as static, then in real time whoever want to use this, they directly use the class and they can access these things. So they don't need to create object for this. Okay, because whenever you create object, obviously it will take some memory. So to improve the performance, they made everything with static. Okay, fine. So now I'm going to scroll down a little bit to see the each and every method in this class. So if you see, everything is marked with yes. So that means all the methods whatever we have in this class are static only. There is no non-static method which is available in this math class. So I'm just going little bit down and show you few things here. So see, whatever variable you are having here, everything is marked with the keyword static. Okay, there is no non-static member. The same way, whenever we have a look on the methods, whatever we have in this class, everything is a static methods only. So this method will help us for the trigonometry. This is to identify the cos value. This is to identify the tan value. So a sine. So all those things we have. And if you want to understand what is the use of this method, very well you can read this documentation. Okay, so that you can easily understand what is the parameter this method is taking. All those things you can very well verify with this. For the easy understanding, I'm going this square root. Okay, so what they are mentioning returns the correctly rounded positive square root of a value. So if you specify a double value to this method, it will return a rounded positive square root value. If you want to understand any specific method, then you can go ahead and have a look on this document also. This will help you to understand the method in an easy way. So I think this is what I want to discuss it here. Okay, let's we go and create a class static real-time example. Okay, I'm going to take like this. Obviously we need a main method. So say finish, that's all. We got it right. First I'm going to take math dot square root. So it will expect double value, right? So I'm going to provide a double value like 20.0. If you run this program, we will get the output for the 20. Okay, so say for example I'm going to give the value like 16.0. Okay, now we will get the exact value 4. Okay, so this how you can easily pass your value and you can get the output. Say for example I'm going to use the max to identify the max value of a given two numbers. Math dot max, we have a variable pi, right? So I'm going to use this, and then another one value I'm going to use like 30. Okay, now I'm going to run this program and we will see what is the output we are getting. Okay, so it's returning 30. Okay, because the math is having a different overloaded method. This pi is a double value, right? So that's the reason it's taking as double, and then particular method is called and we are getting the output as expected. So whenever you do mouse over here, you can able to see the content of the method. Okay, fine, whatever it's showing up at the first, right, it's showing like a double, so that is called as return type of that method. Then where the method is available, java.lang, the class is math and method name is max. Then this method is taking two argument, one is a double a and double b. So this how you can easily understand it. Okay, now I'm going to say like int max equal to, so math dot max of 700 comma 800. So now if you do mouse over here, it's taking the integer argument max function. Okay, so this is whatever value you are providing. Okay, it will take the max method based on that value. So this is the use of method overloading. Now if I am trying to print this out, what is the value we have in max? Okay, I'm going to run this program. So we are getting as expected. I'm going to write if max is greater than 500. Okay, then I'm going to take that math dot min. Now I'm going to consider this max. Let's we consider this like math dot square root of max value. Okay, let's we put this also in a square root, so that math dot square root of, let's we say 400. So this line what it's going to do, it's going to give the minimum value. Okay, based on the whatever result you're gonna get out of this, comma whatever result you're going to get out of this. Okay, it's gonna compare this two and then it will return the minimum value from that. Now I'm going to sys out. So if you run this, so we are getting 20. Okay, because obviously the square root of 400 is 20, the square root of 800 will be more than the 20, so we are getting the result as expected. So this is how you can easily perform whatever you want to perform, so or whatever math operation you want to perform, you can easily perform using this ready-made methods. Okay, to conclude this, the math class is made up of only a static methods and static members. So if you want to see more about this, please try to go into the math class and try to explore few more things. Okay, if you are not able to explore or if you are having any doubts, please feel free to put your comments in the comment box so that we will have a look and we will try to revert back as soon as possible. Thanks for watching our videos. Please subscribe our channel for more videos like this. Keep supporting us. Thank you.